I know what you're thinking. Another one of those millennials. I mean, what possible information, what profound knowledge could this kid possibly have to enlighten us with? Well, it's not necessarily some sort of new, groundbreaking information that I've come to share with you today. Rather, I hope that by recollecting some of my diverse experiences, that I'll be able to alter your perspectives on a very serious topic. And that topic is the environment. What can a millennial teach you about the environment? Well, I'm guessing the first thing that pops up to your mind when the topic is brought up is global warming, climate change, maybe even carbon dioxide emissions. Yet what we fail to realize is that the environment is so interconnected that it encompasses so much more than just that. And therefore, the problems influenced and aggravated by man are also much more abundant than we think. Allow me to elaborate. Turn back the clock 3 years, and I moved from Pittsburgh to Pune, India, a city close to Mumbai. And in India was where I had my first real experience with serious environmental issues. You see, their smog was anything but unusual. Trash could be seen scattered all across roads. Even acid rain was quite frequently a problem. This picture was taken right outside my community. Clearly, the problem was quite widespread. Now, rivers, local water bodies, these were all sources of illegal dumping. I mean, if you just took a look at some of the local rivers in my city, they looked so murky, so unsanitary. Quite frankly, you might think it looks more like sewage. Keep in mind now that these were the same rivers that we got our drinking water from. And as a result, most families had to keep separate filters in their houses just to prevent catching stomach bug from drinking water straight from the tap. Can you imagine that? Here in Texas, in America for the most part, we have excellent quality water supply at our disposal whenever we like. That wasn't the case back in India, though, where, according to the World Health Organization, 97 million people lacked access to clean drinking water. And that global number is much, much larger. Yet, despite all the horrific circumstances I just revealed, what astonished me the most was that, to a pedestrian on the road, these sights were commonplace, overlooked without even as much as a simple glance of concern. Now, this was a result of years of neglect, coupled with ignorance, and the situation is gradually improving now. But just realize for a second that this was reality for us. And I'm trying to paint a better picture to help explain to you what we faced on a daily basis. And having lived in two drastically different countries, I can personally attest to the fact that you can't truly appreciate something until you've been deprived of it. And we need to ensure that we are not depriving ourselves of a healthy, sustainable environment. So, where do we as Americans fall into place here? Keep America Beautiful, one of the largest environmental nonprofits in the United States, did a study where they reported that litter alone cost the United States over $10 billion annually. This doesn't even take into account all the other environmental problems we face and their impacts on us. It simply noted that litter itself costs us more than $10 billion. Clearly, the societal cost is huge to us. Yet we read such appalling statistics like this all the time, don't we? And after all, statistics are, well, just numbers. They exist to point out problems so that the necessary steps can be taken to solve them. And that's where I believe the issue lies. We're often aware of the statistics, aware of the numbers, yet we still fail to take action. Or if we do take action, it's after a majority of the damage has already been done. So my question to you today is, why? Why must we wait for something to occur rather than being proactive? Why spend years of resources and money to mitigate a national pandemic that could have largely been prevented in the first place? I mean, what if we face some of the serious environmental problems that some other severely polluted nations face? What impact would that have on us, on our long-term health, even on our economy? Now, you might be thinking, this guy's clearly crazy, right? He's out of his mind, because we don't have trash all over our streets here in Texas. We don't even have pollution nearly severe enough to cause visible smog, right? So why should we care? Well, to that I say, the United States Environmental Administration tells us that Texas is the largest emitter of carbon in the United States. And although it hasn't yet led to the same level of problems as, say, those prevalent in New Delhi, India, where people literally have to wear face masks to filter out pollutants on a daily basis, does that mean we should continue hoping that, nah, what happened to them, there's no way that can happen to us? And if you think this isn't a problem that we face here in the States, just look to Los Angeles, where pollution levels have really gotten out of hand in the last couple years. Despite all the current regulations in place to impose stricter emission limits, the American Lung Association reported in 2016 that over half of Americans, 52% to be exact, still live in areas with unhealthy levels of ozone and particle pollution. So clearly, we're not yet at a level where we need to be in terms of sustainability. Now, having personally witnessed the dreadful state of the environment back in India, I then decided to join some local groups that were dedicated to cleaning the streets. And upon returning back to America in 2014, I wanted to continue with this environmental initiative, as I was now aware that minor issues, if gone overlooked, could quickly escalate into major, long-term challenges. Now, like I said, you may not even notice much trash on our streets, which is definitely a positive, but have you ever walked down deep into one of the natural parks in your area or creeks? Because that is where most of the litter tends to accumulate. You see, the first time I really noticed abundant quantities of litter here in Plano was when I was on a long run with my cross-country team at Arbor Hills. And deep into the long run, I noticed a cluster of plastic bags caught behind some bushes, which really made me wonder how much more trash is really out there that we don't necessarily see on a daily basis, but that still exists. I got my answer when I joined a litter cleanup at Coyote Creek. Quickly, it became evident that the reason we don't see that much trash on our roads is because most of it is being carried down by rain, wind, and watershed runoff into these parks and into these creeks. That poses a major problem to us because chemicals from plastics and other litter will leach into the surroundings. And over time, these chemicals will contaminate our drinking water sources. Now, after realizing how much trash we really do leave behind, I decided to form a sustainability club in my high school to conduct more such litter cleanups on a more consistent and frequent basis. Initially, we only had about 4, maybe 5 volunteers join us on our first cleanup, and over time the club grew in size, but what was important was that each of those individuals was genuinely committed and passionate. I didn't want to simply get students to volunteer half-heartedly because their main incentive was to just get the required number of National Honor Society hours. Rather, I wanted to create a mindset that it should be our duty to preserve the environment. I believe it takes such small-scale efforts to make a larger impact on society as a whole. And I also believe the millennial generation will spearhead such movements in the future. We need to strive to perpetuate an environmentally conscious mindset. So, what can you do on your part? Think twice about throwing that plastic bag or wrapper out the window of your car. And instead, wait until you get home to throw it away. Reduce and reuse. Try to reduce the amount of waste you generate and reuse whenever possible. You might be wondering why I left off recycling. Not that it's bad or anything, but contrary to what you might think, the recycling process is actually quite energy intensive. So try to prioritize reducing and reusing before recycling. I challenge each of you to dedicate just 2 hours a month to join a local litter cleanup. I think you'd be quite surprised to learn about the impacts we really have on our surroundings. And these cleanups are also a great deal of fun as well. In fact, just today, Plano hosted the Great American Litter Cleanup and had a turnout of, I think, over 1,500 volunteers. A better future needs to start with change today. Thank you.